There's a way to stop the senseless violence that has been trending in our lives. Why are we stripping and limiting law-abiding citizens of their right to bear arms? Criminals don't care about gun laws. They're criminals after all. Everyone values their souls and wants to stop the horrible massacres that have been trending in our day-to-day lives. The right to bear arms is crucial in our crusade to eliminate senseless violence, protect the innocent, and establish safety in our lives. Giving up our right to bear arms is giving up our right to be free. Adolf Hitler understood this concept. Hitler, arguably the worst human to have ever stepped foot on this earth, utilized the tactic of stripping people of their weapons when he invaded people in Czechoslovakia. He was even quoted as saying, "To conquer a nation, first, disarm its citizens. Our Second Amendment right is what keeps us safe and affirms our right to control the government instead of the government controlling us."
Would you feel safe if your family was getting shot at but didn't have anything to protect yourself? People should have the right to own guns. Even though there are a lot of crimes today that involve guns, I do not think gun control is necessary. According to the NRA, guns are used for self-defense 2.5 million times a year. The police cannot always protect everyone at all times. 61% of men and 56% of women were surveyed by Pew Research and said that stricter gun laws would make it more difficult for people to protect their homes and families. Even though you can call the police, they might not be there on time, or you might not be able to reach the phone on time. On February 14th, a former student shoots up Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, killing at least 17 adults and children. If the school had guns and the teachers might have been able to defend themselves and the children, causing less death or even no deaths at all. This is why we need guns. If we take away guns, people would just find more ways to get them and cause even more problems.
Yes, guns are used by bad people to commit murders. Yes, guns in the wrong hands will create chaos, but guns in the right hands will limit how these criminals attack. Have you ever seen criminals try to shoot up or rob a gun store or a police station? That's an absurd idea because everyone inside of those places is armed. If we look at the places where mass shootings have taken place, we see that 99% of these places are called gun-free zones. These zones include schools, hospitals, concerts, and sporting events. Although we see them as gun-free zones, they are also known as soft targets by criminals. This term is used to label possible targets because there is minimal, if any, security. Gun-free zones lead to one-sided fights, massacres. The tactic of warding off attacks by appearing armed is not something theoretical either. It was unintentionally implemented by the United States government during the Second World War. A Japanese admiral by the name of Isoroku Yamamoto was even quoted saying, "You cannot invade the mainland United States. There is a rifle behind every blade of grass." It is easy for us to see guns as a problem, because simply all mass shootings involve guns. But it is logistically impossible to disarm our entire population. But it is possible to fight fire with fire.
Someone breaks into your house at night and tries harming your family. Do you have the right to defend yourself? If the people of our country aren't armed at all times, it can be dangerous for various reasons. People don't only die by getting shot, they can get stabbed with a knife or hit with a baseball bat to the head multiple times. Why should we not take those weapons out as well? If we have guns, that will prevent people from using malicious weapons to harm each other. Now people can say that if we have guns, we will shoot each other, but that is why we should go through severe background checks and make sure that they are thoroughly eligible for a gun. If we take guns away, people will not feel safe because that protection is huge, knowing you have something to back up your family if an intruder comes by or an old enemy of yours. My main goal was to make sure the reader understands why we should be armed at all times. It's for their own personal safety and benefit, to help their families continue their life, living it with less worries, and also if they have something to know that they can defend themselves with, that's just huge.
Will gun control laws actually have a positive effect on our society? As we can see in Mexico, in 2012 they had 11,000 gun murders, and they have the strictest gun control laws in the world. That is compared to our 9,146 gun homicides that we had in the United States. 60% of which were suicides. If you look at why our founding fathers put the Second Amendment there, it was to protect us from they put it there to protect themselves from King George. They wanted to be able to protect themselves from tyranny. Here we can protect ourselves from tyranny, and we can protect ourselves from thugs and criminals who also have weapons. The weapons give us a certain feeling of safety, and it gives us protection around violent encounters. Gun control laws aren't needed, but what is needed is education about guns. Safety about guns should be taught to children so they know how to protect themselves. 95% of all U.S. gun owners believe that children should be taught gun safety. The Second Amendment was intended to protect gun ownership of all able-bodied men, so that they can participate in the militia to keep the peace and defend the country if needed. 79% of male gun owners and 80% of female gun owners said owning a gun made them feel safer, and 64% of the people living with those owners feel safe as well. Guns just don't give us something we can defend yourself with, but it gives us a sense of safety. People should have the rights to have guns. Even though there are a lot of crimes today that involve themselves with guns, it's not the guns that cause the violence, it's the people with the guns. Gun control should not be put in place, but things like background checks should be a part of the process of getting a gun. 61% of men and 56% of women were surveyed by Pew Research and said that stricter gun laws would make it more difficult for people to protect their homes and family. Even though you can call the police, if we take away guns, people would just find a way to get them. And it would be even worse because people now would be breaking their laws to get what they need. Thank you.
Arming ourselves is our best way of making sure our families and the rest of our rights stay secure and safe. If we are to give up our weapons, then we are subjugating ourselves to a life of fear, uncertainty, and yes, slavery. If we give up our rights now, then at what point will the government stop taking our rights? We will not, shall not, live a life of fear. We will no longer be afraid of going to schools. We will not be influenced by the terrorists and criminals that have threatened our way of life. If we give up our defenses, then they win. So arm yourselves. There is no protector, no guardian, no savior besides oneself. With our weapons we prepare, and in God we trust.